Good evening, everyone. Today is November 9th, 2021, and this is the Olivet City Hall Council meeting. Can we please proceed with roll call?
Councilmember Carl.
Here.
Councilmember Waldman.
Here.
Chairman Weil.
Here.
Mayor.
Here.
Item number 2, Mayor's communications. We have no written communications this evening. Item number 3 is City Manager's report.
Good evening. I have a very short report for you tonight. You'll be happy to know. You just used all my good news last week. All right. We have 9 residents that have applied for the council vacancy. Interviews are scheduled to occur on November 16th. There's still the actual opening or the application period closes tomorrow at 5 p.m. Just a reminder, we have a lot of activities going on in the parks. We have our first Weed Warriors of the season is November 13th from 9 until 11. Anybody can just show up for that. It's you can, if you want to volunteer, they'll be moving invasives. And if you've been to any of the parks lately, you'll have seen and noticed the amazing job that this group has been doing. And so tools will be provided to just show up at Irvside Park at 9 a.m. We have our groundbreaking. We'll talk a little bit more about that for our Prop C renovations and new community center. It'll be on this Saturday at 1 p.m. Kids Night Out is December 17th. There is no better deal in the city than this. Drop your kids off at 5:30. Stay out until, well, this says 9:30. I assume it's the same night. And they'll have themed games, movie night, dinner, snacks. And so registration closes on 11. Oh, it already closed, I guess. So hope you made it. I'll see if there's still more spots. I'll email Beverly and see. And then our holiday light hop date is December 13th through the 26th. So again, just like we'll put a map up, and if you want your house on there, you can drive around and drink hot chocolate and look at the lights and all of that. As I said, we have our groundbreaking. It's your vision becomes our reality. Construction will be beginning the community center, the park improvements in our 5 parks, as well as the Centennial Greenway, which will go from Dealman all the way to Warson Park. That will be at 1200 North Warson, and that will be the address of the new community center if we win the battle with the county. And we're getting the address on there. So if you know where the Saints were or was, that's kind of where the new community center will be, and that's the parking lot we'll be using for the groundbreaking. Starts at 1. We're going to try to have you out of there at 2. It's supposed to be a nice, sunny, chilly day, but it should be exciting. We're going to have hot chocolate, cookies. Fire truck's going to be there, I hear, so should be a good time. 8th annual Olivet Turkey Trot, Thanksgiving Day, and please sign up. We are at about 900 people right now. Our goal this year is 2,000, and so we can typically the bulk of the registration actually occurs within these last 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. I can see people already nodding their head, thinking that they have to register. We've got great shirts. You can buy some of our vintage swag. Packet pickup will be the Tuesday and Wednesday before Thanksgiving. The run is at 8 a.m. We will get you out and back home by 10. We have donations. We'll have hot chocolate, beer from about 6 different breweries, and Bloody Marys are new this year, as opposed to the margaritas from the past. So come and join us. If you are not interested in being with a lot of people on Thanksgiving, then you can do our virtual. Or if you're don't want to be around your family, you can stay at the park. So just, there's options for everybody. Upcoming events, we will be closed in honor of Veterans Day on November 11th. That's Thursday. Our groundbreaking, as I said, is November 13th at 1 p.m. at Warson Park. We have a special city council meeting November 16th at 7 p.m. We'll be doing the interviews on that, but it will be actually a regular meeting, so the council may be taking action. Park and Recreation Commission is November 17th. Planning and Community Design Commission, November 18th. We are to have a regular council meeting on November 23rd. Typically, we only have that if we have something that really needs to be done. At this point, I don't see anything on the agenda. So I'll keep you posted, but typically by the end of this week, I usually know. But maybe wait until after the 16th and we'll make a final decision. Planning Community Design Commission, November 2nd at 7 p.m. And then December 7th is the first city council work session. I cannot believe 2021 is almost done. And with that, I'll be happy to entertain any questions, compliments, complaints can go to Darren. All right, moving on.
Item number 4, city council reports.
I have not attended a meeting since our last meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I attended a municipal league meeting on the 28th of October, whereby a law firm presented on SB 26, which is known as the Police Officers' Bill of Rights. In attendance at that meeting was our esteemed attorney, Mr. Paul Martin, esteemed city manager, Barbara Sondag, and esteemed police chief, Chief Wolf, where the discussion of how this law would currently impact how personnel matters are handled under administrative investigations. This is a new law that was implemented in effect as of August 28, 2021. And it gets punted over to HR and to our city manager with regards to proper protocol and making sure we're following this, unless there ends up being some levels of legislative altering or changing of this new officer Bill of Rights. The other thing that I kind of want to comment on is the SAPA law. I think if people watched 60 Minutes Sunday night, we were the first topic of discussion. The SAPA law, which really limits police officers' ability to deal with someone who has a handgun. It's unbelievable that this law has been impacted, and I'm going to say to my council and to anybody out there that, you know, we need to be putting our ears to the ground, and we need to make sure that this law clearly gets modified in some capacity. Our police officers put their lives on the line every day, and we do not need for them to be getting chastised or fined or given some type of penalty because they don't really know how to deal with, how do we deal with the gun when the legislator says, well, you can do it, yet I go by what is in the language and it says you can't. So these are two very concerning pieces of legislation where state government is, in my opine, usurping the abilities of local government to do what it needs to do in public safety and protect its citizens and its police. Now I will go on to the Planning Community Design Committee meeting that I attended on November 4th. That committee was blessed to have Mr. Martin again in attendance to provide Planning Community Design Commission meeting. The functions of the roles and identified the functions fall under Chapter 89. It is a planning and zoning regulation. Additional questions were asked with regard to some levels of format. You know, what happens if you get a 3-3 vote? What happens if somebody doesn't want to take the advice and move forward instead of maybe, you know, stepping back and coming back with regards to improvements that are recommended by the body. And this is sometimes where I got to say, this is important. By when you come to the Planning Community Design Commission, You should be coming with your professional. So that professional better understands what it is this board is looking for, whether it be aesthetics, whether it be structure, whatever it is. We, the common layman, really don't know how to be the best advocate for ourselves when it comes to those professional needs and wants. So with that, Mr. Trejo typically gives us all a very good summary and rundown of how things go. This really was a more of a conversation piece, discussion over site coverage for pools, chapter 420 stream buffer regulations. Those were the types of things that they had in questions for the attorney. And that is my report. I hope I didn't miss anything, Mr. Martin.
I don't think you missed anything. You may have picked up a few of my pieces too. Gregor Carl, Mr. Carl, do you have anything, sir?
Yes, let me see here. I need to get back online. I'm muted.
We hear you.
Okay. Because I'm trying to bring up a web page at the same time. Okay, so I attended the pension board meeting. The current third quarter balance of the pension fund is $25,196,553. We reviewed some basic asset allocation changes and again, the implementation of the purchase of a private equity fund and how that would break out from the assets we currently have. But prior to our allocation of anything to the private equity fund, all our funds were in the range they should have been for their asset allocation. And I think that's it. The implementation of that private equity is going forward. So that's really a summary. And if anybody wants more, let me know.
I do have a question, Mr. Mayor. So in our private equity, what we agreed to that we would be putting only 5% from our 25 million into the private equity. Was that discussed today? Is that where things are going or we're just talking at this point?
All the paperwork has been completed and wait until January. When is the next opportunity to actually do that investment?
Okay.
I did attend the Olivet Creve Coeur Chamber of Commerce meeting, maybe about a week and a half ago. I did not mention it in our last meeting. I did speak briefly and I spoke about the success of our city and the partnership that we have with the businesses in our community. I was quite proud to represent our city and got a few handshakes and everybody's watching. And what I wanted to speak to everyone in the audience is that it's not just important for Olivet to grow, but everyone in this region to grow together. And it was a nice place to shake some hands and meet some very, very nice people who are trying to live the American dream.
Item number 5 is the monthly financial report for October 2021.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. We have in front of us our monthly financial report to the end of October. We don't have anything much new to report here. Everything's around where we would expect them to be. The few good exceptions, and one is in our sales taxes are doing well. Overall revenue is up about $197,000 compared to where we thought. Expenses then below around 100,000 from where we would have expected them to be for a net favorable balance of about $300,000. Again, like I said, the sales tax and utility taxes, we talked about those last month, are exceeding our expectations. And then the refuse departments and then the legal department, even though we heard a lot from Paul, he must be doing this pro bono. All of our meetings, or they were more recent than the last bill. Sometimes he gets behind too, because he's so busy. The refuse department is behind because we haven't paid our leaf collectors. They were here last week and we had in our budget. We expected them to pay them in October and probably going to be in November. From there, we see our dashboard about where we would expect to be with property taxes still not quite being collected until maybe the end of November. We'll see maybe some at the end of that, but then starts really heavy in December. Then if we look at our reserve policy analysis, we're well within in compliance there to the tune of about 3.2 million. Sales tax is doing well. Property taxes at 0, except for the Elmwood Park charges for fire service. And then utility tax collections started strong. They're still better than expected in the electric side, but giving way in some other places. Those remainder categories, again, have come right back into line, kind of where we'd expect. Our chart of the month, the sales tax returns, and there are orange line there that's creeping its way across. You can see that it's doing very well. We don't have our November number yet, which usually we do for our finance report, but since we're early this month, don't quite have our figure. But we can see there that orange line is doing much better than almost any of the other years for the last 7. I would like to point, if we go one more, how close we are in a lot of our revenues outside of the sales tax. The number on the far right is the variance. So outside of that sales tax category, everything is very close. Again, utility tax is above, which is the first time we've seen something like that in several years. And then if we go to that expense category, which is the green ones, you can see those are very close in all regards. If we, so that's on our functional classification personnel expenses. That's, you know, I hope this continues. It shows we have a little bit of a good handle on where we're at. I'm going to go one more page. And now, so this is personnel by function. If we go one more page, we can see by department. And in here is where you can kind of flesh out some of those, where are our variances, where are we ahead of where we thought. And again, we can see really close in a lot of our really larger departments, which is police and fire, mostly toward the top. And then as we get toward the bottom, the 31,000 in the refuse collection, which is that one payment to Hindell for our leaf collection, and then 3 numbers above that, in 4 numbers above the 5 numbers for the legal side there, add the 16,000. And the planning and community development is more for a software implementation there, if we were to dig deeper. With that, I'll definitely open up to any questions that anyone might have. There was something in here I was going to say. Oh, one thing that did show up in October, if we could go to page, it's toward the end. It's with our gateway TIF, and it's on page 13. In there, we have begun to see sales tax collections, and that's from the CID, which is the Community Improvement District within in that TIF district itself, the Gateway District. Yep, it's the right there, sales tax. You can see you had a budget of 0, and then the year-to-date actual of 5,455. So those funds will join the property tax collections on any increment that is there. We have had some in the past several years. Now, obviously, there's not much for buildings there, so we probably won't be much of an increment. But those numbers have started to collect there, and that started in October. So that's a new development there. The Capitol? Yep, that's on page 7. At the bottom. One more after that. There we go.
This one or the actual, the one he was at before, Missy?
Oh,
This one?
gotcha.
So in this police department, we're under in the one, little bit over 1%. Expected difference of about $10,000. What is that from?
If the detail to this is in the back for all the general fund and all the departments themselves, I can almost guarantee you that it's for the health insurance.
Okay, thank you.
We pay our health insurance roughly a month ahead. So the cash is out the door, but it's for the next month of November. So it puts us always a little ahead, and that's because we're good at paying our bills. Yeah, 12,000 for the health insurance just in that department. So that's all of it.
Put my mic on. And our court system looks like, it is what it is, but I understand where that's coming from.
The revenue or the expenditure side is the variance there is mostly because we have a part-time position budgeted that we haven't filled. So. Thank you.
I would like to thank Darren because, again, as he said, he's a couple weeks early. Usually his financial report would have been done at your second meeting. And it takes a lot to get these numbers done for when the month ended only, 9 days ago. So he and Tanya did a good job, and we'll see that on his KPI when his November has that he actually had his financial report in. December will be tough too.
Item number 6 is hearing from citizens.
I see no one online, Mayor.
Okay, item number 7 is bill number 2962, an ordinance authorizing and directing the issuance, sale, and delivery of general obligation refunding and improvement bonds, Series 2021 of the City of Olivet, Missouri, prescribing the form and details of said bonds, providing for the levy and collection of an annual tax for the purpose of paying the principal of and interest on said bonds as they become due, and authorizing certain other documents and actions in connection therewith. Second reading.
Mayor, I'm going to kick this over to, I'm going to let Darren speak to this. And we also have Joy Howard, who's our financial advisor, as well as Shannon Creighton, who's with Gilmore and Bell and is our bond attorney. And they are all here and can speak to the good work that happened over the last several months, resulting in a good day today.
Yes, like manager said, we do have our bond counsel and our financial advisor here today. I won't say much more other than from the standpoint of the city finances, this is a good payoff for all of some of the work that goes on through our department heads and, at the council level too, for setting these budgets. It starts off mostly with here that we have a good story here because we have a good bond rating, and the bond rating starts quite a ways away. We have to recognize the opportunity, which of course we have people that do that too. This helps us out in a lot of ways, and more than anything, it helps our taxpayers out. It's we can refinance this under cheaper terms than we had before. We are issuing some money to work on to improve the parks and the community center. And with that, it's a very complex subject that I won't even pretend on much of anything to understand, but it is a very valuable tool for us to use. So should we have Joy come up and explain
Yeah,
what happened today?
Or they can both come up. It's
Absolutely, yep.
Either way, however they would like to do it. Is there a particular slide I should have up, Darren, do you think, or?
Yeah, I'll hang those up. And that's the one that we got today. Which is the bid package.
Okay. Can I see that one?
So, and can you hear me okay? Yeah, I can hear myself okay. In front of you is a summary of the bids that we received today. You had 11 bids, which is a very large number of bids on bonds nowadays. I haven't seen this many since many years ago when all of the banks started merging together. And typically the more bids you have, the better the result. And I think that this definitely it shows that was the case. The bids, I'm saying this wrong. I'm going to start over. The bonds are awarded based on the best bid, which takes into account what's known as the true interest cost. And that's shown at the bottom of this table. It says TIC. The TIC is a blend of the rates and the underwriter's fees. And the best bid was from Piper Sandler, previously Piper Jaffray, at 1.269. I'm not going to read every single digit you've got in front of you. And the rates went all the way up to 1.595. And just to give you some proper perspective, when I started working for the city and talking about the refunding, my model was based on a rate right at about 1.5%. So I was within this range, but obviously at the high end, and that's a good thing. The rates came in definitely better than I was projecting, in spite of the fact that we've been very concerned about rising interest rates. So the document that you're going to approve tonight, which, oh, where'd Shannon go? Oh, there you are. Which Shannon can address if you have any questions, will be the bond ordinance, which inserts the various information from the Piper Sandler bid. And basically that's the best bid that we're going to be approving by the ordinance. A few other important details is that if you were just doing the refunding component without the new component, when I had initially started working on it, I was projecting savings of around 850,000. And if you recall, I was really disappointed. I'm like, I really want this to be $1 million, but I just don't trust interest rates. And it turned out that if you were just doing the savings would have been, I mean, the refunding, the savings would have been around 1,800,000. $1,008,000. And on top of that, because our savings are very significant, we're not going to take all of the savings, but incur some new debt. And that worked out very well too. I'm trying to find my notes on exactly, that was a 565,000 authorized issue. But if you look at the bids, you'll notice that there was quite a bit of premium that's being paid. And that's a little bit complicated, but instead of paying for the face value of the bonds, the underwriter's giving you more funding. The bid amount was 697,000 approximately. That becomes an adjustment to the issue size. On the refunding, the premium reduces the size. And on the new issue, it gives you more construction proceeds. So when you look at the ordinance, and this is very complicated items, so I'm just trying to give you the things I think are most important. But when you look at the ordinance, you'll see that the total issue size was reduced from my original 8,900,000 to 8,845,000. That's on a combined basis. On the voter approved piece, which was the 565,000, you are not allowed to change that amount upwards, only downwards if you wanted to, but ideally we want to get you as much construction funds as possible and do the premium. Your construction funds are going to be around $604,000. And I think that I've covered all of the highlights unless you have questions. I know it's a bit complicated, but anyway you cut it, everything went very smoothly. And we had a great number of bids and a lot of interest in your issue. And that's all I have to say. Oh, and I guess I could say the market went in your favor too. Everybody's been on pins and needles. Everybody has been anticipating that because of inflation, rates were going to go much higher. And we've been monitoring it. I've been sending a rate graph to the city every week, and it's moved a tiny little bit, but nothing very substantial. So the market went in your favor as well.
Good evening. Shannon Creighton with Gilmore and Bell. So you have before you the ordinance, as Joy indicated, to approve the issuance of the bonds. And as Joy indicated, this will use up the rest of your voted authority from June 2020 that you went to the voters for. So there will be no more of that voted authority left. And then also the refunding piece. All the final interest rates that were approved, that were provided by Piper today have been inserted into this ordinance. And the deposits the amounts going to the refunding and the amounts going into your project fund were inserted. Those were the changes that were made from the first reading of the ordinance a few weeks ago. These are, general obligation bonds. You have several series of these payable from a property tax based on secured by the full faith and credit taxing power of the city. So if you all have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those at this time.
So a lot of work goes into to this over, there's a lot of preliminary work and then there's a lot of kind of back end work. And so the bond sale actually, the bids were due at 10 a.m. today. And then Joy goes and takes all that information and checks it and does something with it. And then she calls Shannon and Shannon does something else with it. And then we get about 6 emails.
That's right.
But it's, short, just really briefly for, bonds for idiots, which I can do is, this is a good day for the taxpayers of the city of Olivet. That savings is going back to them. In that as we repay that 2014 bond, and then also alleviate some of the pressure that we had in our park project by allowing us to actually take out some of the money that we didn't fully fund in 2020. And so bottom line is, this is a good day. And just want to recognize both Darren and Joy and Shannon because, this is just another world. And you place a lot of faith in these folks.
I just want to reiterate that, I've known you for almost 20 years now. Joy, you're a pleasure, and it is so, cha-ching, man. I haven't said that to you in a while, but you are just a plethora of fresh air and knowledge, and you bring it down like my fellow council member Greg Carl does for me. You bring it down to a very simple level, and to hear when I came in after I kind of came in and watched that we ended up over $1 million, it's like, and I'm worried as I'm watching the market say, bonds and the percentages are going up. I'm like, oh my God, how is this going to impact us? Hurry, let's get this done. And the city of Olivet citizens, we are so blessed. We are so blessed. So I'm grateful for today and what you've all done from staff to our professionals.
Thank you very much.
But you're gonna beat them to it.
Well, I'll entertain a motion.
You're not going. I'll go.
I'll go. I'm ready. I just had to bring up the page so I can see it. Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve Bill 2962, an ordinance authorizing and directing the issuance, sale, and delivery of general obligation refunding and improvement bonds, Series 2021 of the City of Olivet, providing for the levy and collection of an annual tax for the purpose of paying the principal of and interest on said bonds as they become due, and authorizing certain other documents and actions in connection therewith.
Second.
All right, can we poll the council?
Councilmember Carl,
Yes.
Councilmember Waldman,
Yes.
Chairman Weil,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes.
Motion passed by action of the Olivet City Council. Bill number 2962 becomes ordinance number 2735. Okay, item number 8 is approval of the purchase of a 2022 Ford F-150 crew cab 4x4
But we
from,
didn't clap. That was worth a.
okay, sorry.
Thank you, Shannon, as well.
Yes. Go ahead.
All right, let's
Sorry.
start over. No, it's okay. Approval of the purchase of a 2022 Ford F-150 crew cab 4x4 from Mockins Ford and a price not to exceed $36,657.
And we have Chief Carmen in on. Chief, if you want to turn on your video.
Can you hear me? Oh, here. I am trying to set that up. There, am I on?
You are on. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council, and Ms. Sondag. My name is Steve Carmen, Fire Chief, City of Olivet Fire Department. The Assistant Chief Command Vehicle is scheduled to be replaced this year. The vehicle will be purchased through Missouri State bid process, and we would like to purchase a 2022 Ford F-150 Crew Cab 4x4. It was chosen to replace a 2016 Ford Escape. We feel that the Ford F-150 will fit the needs of the fire department. The bid price from Mawkins Ford is $36,657. The upfit of lights, decals, and command box will be on separate POs for this vehicle and within the budgeted amount that we have budgeted in the capital improvement. We have any questions?
Hopefully you picked a color you like, sir.
It's either gray or black. We don't really get to much to choose from there.
Okay, any council members have any questions?
I do. What is the engine size of this Ford F-150?
Oh.
I'm
I-
sorry. I didn't mean to put you on the spot like
I'll
that.
answer.
No, I do
It's a
not have,
V8?
They
I
don't
do
make,
not have the specs directly in front of me, so I apologize.
All right, all right.
I can get that for you.
The mayor has you covered,
I had
Steve.
you
That's
covered.
okay.
It's a V8.
Yeah.
I'm a truck guy.
Okay,
It's a V8.
okay, thanks. Anything else that is the extra woo-hoo? Oh, let me ask you. Anything else is an extra woo-hoo for the fact that it's a Ford F-150 that is an advantage?
It's got an EcoBoost engine in it, which makes it a very fuel efficient truck.
Okay,
So
cool. Very good.
that's one
Thank
of
you.
the plus on it.
All right, thanks.
Anyone else have any other questions? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the purchase of a 2022 Ford F-150 Crew Cab 4x4 from Mackins Ford at a price not to exceed $36,657.
Second,
All right. Can we poll council, please?
Councilmember Carl,
yes.
Councilmember Waldman,
Yes,
Chairman Weil,
Yes.
Mayor,
Yes.
motion passed.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, council. Appreciate it.
Okay, item number 9 is St. Louis County easement request, Steelman at Napoleon.
None? Oh, sorry, here we go. Evening, everybody. Bruce McGregor, Public Works Director. St. Louis County has been planning for quite some time a road improvement project for Dealman Road between Olive and Page. At our request and GRG's request, we asked them probably about 18 months ago to include a crossing for the Centennial Greenway adjacent to Napoleon at the north side of town. It took them quite a while for them to get the design additional work for the consultant approved through their council and their process, but they have that completed. And with the new design, they have a re-ask of the city for easements associated with that work. Okay, so last year, maybe 12 months ago, they came to us with a request for easements for the project. Those easements were granted. Well, now we have a new design and we have to have new easements. Okay. Yes, the old ones are going to come out. Most of the old ones were really what we would call in our lingo a temporary construction easement. They call it a temporary slope construction license. St. Louis County has their own sort of nomenclature for right of way. Okay. So those previous ones, if anybody recalls us executing them, those will go away at Napoleon. And we will now have one on the Napoleon side and one on the west side as well, where the city owns a very small triangular parcel adjacent to the bridge. Over there, it's a remnant parcel that somehow got dedicated to us, but it will be used as the landing area for access to the trail to cross Steelman on the west side of the road. Okay, so it's an east-west crossing. So on their map, and I do have blueprints here as well, and we can bring them up on screen. We're looking at parcels number 5 and 13 on their overall plan of the project. So every parcel has an address. So on the Napoleon side, and if you look at the drawings here, you'll see two nice acronyms there. TSCL, that is the temporary aspect so that they can have access to our property for construction and do some grading. And then the prim use, which is basically a permanent easement, similar to what you might give MSD in your backyard or Ameren UE, so that they have access to our property to maintain what they construct. So the grading is really something for what I would call a soft improvement. The prim use is needed for a more permanent item attached to the ground. So that could be a curbing, sidewalk, signage. And in the case of parcel 13, on the opposite side of the road, there's going to be a guardrail so that if somebody diverts off of the roadway, they won't go into the river de Pere. And the sidewalk that's being constructed will actually straddle the city of Olivet and St. Louis County. So that's why there's a prim use in that parcel as well. I'd be glad to answer questions. I can go on in more detail, but
I just have a question because I know what the address 9615 Huron means to me as a trustee.
Mhm.
Why is this labeled 9615 Huron Drive? Is this where it's
Oh.
going to?
That is
the park, Indian Meadows Park.
that's the address they use for Indian Meadows Park.
And that's what
For the
that's
whole
what I
thing.
understand that address to be, but it just didn't make sense to me if this was on a street, why they were
Yeah.
using
And
that.
so it
Okay.
extends into the city property of Indian Meadows Park off of the public right of way. So both of these are on private city property, not in the public right of way, like on a street. For instance, like Dealman Industrial.
And again, excuse me, it's just, I know what that
It
address
seems out of
means,
place, right?
And
to
it
see a
did seem
Huron.
out of place. So
Right,
that was
for a
going to be
Huron
my
address.
one question. So thank you.
Okay, you are welcome. Yeah, there's.
Mr. Mayor and City Council, I motion to execute the easement document for parcel 5 and parcel 13 is attached for the St. Louis County project, STP 5627, parentheses 602.
I'll
Second.
second.
Can we please poll the council?
Councilmember Carl,
Yes.
Councilmember Waldman.
Yes.
Chairman Weil,
Yes.
Mayor,
Yes.
motion passed.
I would just like to point out that Bruce McGregor has stood up here for over 5 minutes and talked about St. Louis County and has said nothing derogatory. I'd like to thank the therapist.
It is, it's really, listen,
that, I
after the
think-
last meeting,
I think he's clearly.
our employee assistance program works and, you know, work the process.
Good job, buddy.
Thanks.
Item number 10 is ratification of leaf collection contract with Hendel Lawn Care LLC.
Okay.
I thought I'd stay up here as well as the support.
I'll start this. Hold on, I just want to get it up on the screen, I'm sorry. We had we've had Hendel Lawn Care do the annual leaf collection for a number of years now. They've always done, a good job for us and at reasonable rates. There are very few companies who do this type of work, mainly because it's a very expensive equipment for a very short season, and the leaves fall at the same time everywhere. So it's, or in the region, so it's really hard to have a lot of jobs. Bruce, in May of this year, sought bids for leaf collection. And he did it for an 8-year agreement. And Hendel was the only respondent at $92,900.
$92,900.
Yeah, $92,900. And I have a typo in here on that second paragraph. The annual cost is actually the 92,900. And we, at that time, Bruce actually had a number of the bids out that came in, and we did, and we brought most of them to you at the same time. This one, in an email exchange, Bruce said, well, why don't we just wait? We'll take this to the council when things calm down, because it was the next fiscal year anyway. I failed to bring it. I actually thought we did bring it. Bruce thought we brought it. Then he said we didn't. He said to me, we didn't take this to the council. I said, oh, yes, we did. And I spent a lot of time looking for it. And I came back and said, I guess we didn't. And at that point in time, we needed to ratify the contract because it was leaf collection. And just for the record, Denise Mandel came into my office prior to this meeting and said, we've already approved that contract for Handel. None of us can find that we did it, but we all remembered that we did it. So I am bringing it to the council for ratification. I am not in any way minimizing this, in that this is not a small contract and it is not a short-term contract. And I would not normally do this, with the exception of the fact that there really are very few vendors, and this is a vendor we've used for a number of years.
Can I ask you to scroll down to the bid? Because I thought the bid, I mean, I thought this was phenomenal when I read it. Who cares about the oversight? Okay, it does say 92.9. I'm like, I didn't remember that. So thank you very much. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's been an acceleration in the year and over the years, and I meant to put this into my handy dandy inflation calculator, you know, based at what we've been paying for, you know, previous years. And I think we're outpacing inflation on this. And there is a concession, as always, in the contract for diesel fuel prices. You know, that's about the only variable.
Wait a minute, are you saying that if the gas goes up, we're gonna be paying more because of the value? And that's part of what's in the
Yeah,
contract? That's the
it's
differential?
typical with these, you know, heavy motor. So Republic Services would have the same thing. If there's a big fee increase that causes their crash prices to go up, they would pass them to us. I don't think we've ever had it come in, maybe once, quite a number of years ago.
I don't know if we've had it here. I've had it before a long time. I've had it once in my career.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah,
it's
so
come into play.
There are a number of different ways you can hedge against these prices. Like with Republic, we use the index, right? A CPI to try to, you know, justify pricing, and same thing, asphalt index, et cetera.
I would like to make a motion.
Somebody's mic is not on.
He didn't hear you. So if you could
Do I
say it
need to
again.
redo the whole thing?
Yes, please.
I'd like to make a motion for the ratification of an agreement between the City of Olivet and Handel Lawn Care LLC for the provision of annual leaf collection for an 8-year term and an annual cost of $92,900.
Second,
Councilmember Carl,
yes.
Councilmember Waldman,
Yes.
Chairman Weil,
Yes.
Mayor,
Did you just find it?
motion passed.
Did you just find it?
Maybe. We passed on August 24th. I remember that somebody.
No, that's fine. We're okay. We're just,
We're just crossing our Ts and dotting our Is again.
So we'd
and
already
that's
approved it.
okay.
Yeah, the action tonight is just a nullity. It just isn't necessary, so no problem.
I would, well, obviously. And next week, we're gonna approve a bond.
So can I ask Mr. Carl a question? Not Carl.
Bruce McGregor.
Mr. Greg. So I saw them going through the city the other day, just driving along, but never putting the chute down. Is it just because we're having a late fall, or were they doing a dry run?
Have Bruce turn his mic on.
Sure. So it is very unpredictable when the leaves will start. So he did do one pass. He started in section 1 and then actually went back through a section of section 1 again after he finished section 3 to try to get ahead. But we just haven't had that really cold spell that cues the leaves. And we never know. Every year it's unpredictable. Yeah, no, and we have 4 passes. We've experienced some years we tried 2 passes. We did 3 passes for many, many years. And then we've gone up to 4 passes trying to hedge against the unpredictability of the leaves. That's all.
And so this is 4 passes?
That's correct.
Okay. And he's even come back when it's been wet, when he's intended to pick up
Yeah.
the leaves, but then things get wet, so he's been a really good, business to work with.
Yeah, I mean, it's very difficult to manage. And he does a good job. And I think he really, intends to serve us well. He's always responsive.
Just one question, why don't we have we used to have the notices of the leaf pickup time, posted like down off of Dillman.
We do.
And somewhere else. Why are we not doing that?
They're out.
I'm just not seeing them. Okay.
There's one right across from Indian Meadows by the Dealman Industrial Park sign. I think we put 3, 7, 8 of them out. They're very pretty green. Maybe everything's so green
Okay.
this year, they blend in with the background.
Okay. I didn't see them. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're out. We actually had trouble getting stickers this year. It was strange. You're welcome.
Item number 11 is discussion of COVID-19 vaccination policy.
Right. The council, requested to have on the item or on the agenda, an item that discusses the creation and implementation of a COVID-19 mandatory vaccination policy. And just as some kind of stats, about 89% of city staff is vaccinated. And we do require all new employees to be vaccinated. We have had some cases of COVID over the past 20 months. And I think we've done compared to a lot of other cities, I think we've done really remarkably well. And I think we've continued with the mask and social distancing practices, but that's an aside. In September, and as we talked about, there was an announcement of a federal requirement for vaccinations. The Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services released their interim final rule mandating vaccinations for many healthcare workers. It was really anticipated that ground ambulance would be clearly identified in that. It is not. It is, and so really the determination of whether the city falls under this new rule has more to do with our relationship with like Mercy Hospital, where our medical director is, et cetera. So at this point, it's still a little bit unclear whether we would be under that mandate. And I've checked with other cities, and they too find it a tad bit unclear. And so with that, so that's just kind of all background. Now, the federal government there were 2 different entities that released interim final rules on the same day, and that was the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services. And so we're involved with them because we accept Medicare and Medicaid payments, and also OSHA. Now, the OSHA requirement was for businesses over 100 employees. We are not over 100 employees. And even if we were, because we are not an OSHA mandated state, the public sector does not have to follow OSHA in that way. So So it's all a little bit complicated. There are differences between the CMS and the OSHA. OSHA allows for testing. The CMS is a mandatory vaccination. Both of them have two exemptions, which is medical and religious. I've been asked about other municipalities in the area who have policies. Brentwood and Webster Groves, Maryland Heights, all have adopted personnel policies, all very similar in their mandatory vaccination, with the exceptions for religious and medical. And Maryland Heights. Well, those are, I didn't check with every municipality in the region. And so, and some are still, you know, kind of might be waiting. I know there's some discussion in Clayton. I know there's some discussion in Richmond Heights. I know there's no discussion. I was kind of looking at some of our EDC cities, no discussion in Rock Hill. So it's kind of, and that's just a anecdotal, this kind of where people are. They are not, nope, they've made their own policy. They've made their own policy. If that policy though, but all three of those communities do not have testing as an option. So they would be following more the CMS than the OSHA. If you classify a policy in one of those two ways.
Sorry, Greg, I had asked if they had accepted or they were doing OSHA or CMS policy before.
Okay.
Barb answered.
Thank
Okay.
you.
So it is possible for the city to create its own policy regarding vaccinations. This is where I say some other cities have. Now, and if the council desires to do so, really the primary topics for discussion would be, the first question is, do you want to have a policy on vaccinations? The second question then is, if that answer to that, do you want to have a vaccination policy, is no, we're done. If the answer to that is yes, we do, then the next question would really be, okay, do you want to have it a mandatory vaccination policy with no testing as an option? And I'm just going to cut to the chase. You're going to have a religious and medical exemption. Okay. And so really what you're looking at is, do you want an exception so that if someone is not vaccinated, they can have a regular test completed. Now, then the other kind of question is, what might your time frame be? Other details kind of with concerning, what types of testing, what the paperwork for the religious and medical exemptions look like, what are the protocols for how people, how that testing occurs. We'll take care of that when we write the policy and bring it back to you. Okay. So I really I don't think it makes sense to focus on, well, where would that testing occur until we get to a point of what do you folks really want? So I would, and I'm really just trying, and this is just my way of trying to bring it into making, kind of taking it off in bites so that you can make some decisions. I'm also happy to find other information that you might want. But this is a, this would be incorporated into the personnel policies. One of the other things that we would want to talk about, and I'd probably want to do a little more research on this, and this is different between a couple of the municipalities, is whether or not you would then require a booster. But again, I think that is a question that is discussed when you're actually looking at a policy, a little, if you decide to have a policy. At this point, I will ask Paul if he has anything that he'd like to add from his perspective.
The only thing that, the only additional input I have is that while it's extremely doubtful, if you adopt a policy and you get sued and your policy is the same as others in the area, then it is easier to form a coalition for defense. Other people are going to be interested in the outcome of that suit and may be willing to assist. So from a legal perspective, if you decide you want to have a policy, I recommend going with the exemptions only and not worrying about the testing exception. So that's all I have.
Just to clarify, Paul, did you mean we would have no testing exemption?
Correct.
Okay, just,
Which would mean that they have to test or,
No.
okay.
it would,
Can you explain why you're saying you can do the exemptions and, but not be tested?
Some people are doing it. I mean, I shouldn't say some people, who is it? Not the CMS?
If people have,
OSHA.
if people fall under a religious or a medical exemption, they would need to be tested. We would still follow a practice for testing them. That doesn't exempt them from testing, exempts them from the vaccination.
Okay, that's not what I
Correct.
recall saying.
Is that correct, Paul?
That's not what he was saying.
I haven't considered it.
Other policies I've seen it require testing.
If that is the OSHA policy, then I would agree with that.
Yes.
And that's what Brentwood and Webster Groves and Maryland Heights are doing.
Again, I think you folks need to,
Well,
yeah, need
no,
to.
that's fine.
I
also-
think they are allowing testing, but we can get back on that. We can
Okay.
get back to you on
So-
that, on those exemptions.
Okay.
okay, so,
Hey,
I,
Greg.
I was gonna say, I'll start. I'm for a testing requirement, or I mean, a vaccine requirement. So per OSHA, if that is our best legal.
You're kind of funky to me. Say that again. You're not clear. And
Oh, okay, I am for having a vaccination policy. And based on what I heard our attorney say, I think we'd be better off following the OSHA requirement.
Yeah, actually, I was saying that the other cities in the region that we know of are not following the OSHA requirement.
Oh,
They're
okay.
simply going with the exemptions.
I really want us to take a step back.
And just decide if we want a
And
policy.
yeah, because if you decide not to have a policy, we know there are going to be exemptions. We know there are going to be religious and medical exemptions. Whether or not those people are tested, we can talk about later, right?
Yep.
So, Mr. Mayor, do you want to take a straw poll and see if people want a policy?
I think that's fine. Let's just at
Because that-
least,
that
let's,
moves us to
like
the
the
second step.
city manager is saying, let's at least decide if this is something we're gonna go forward with.
Yeah, let's just have a discussion rather than a poll.
Okay,
I don't know if you meant that literally, but
no, not literally.
So we're just gonna go over the first item that the city manager said we needed to address. Do we want to implement the policy?
Do we want to have a policy, not implement?
Well, to me, it's the same difference.
Okay.
Okay.
And Greg is saying, yes, he would like to have a policy.
I would.
And I'm in agreement. I would like to have a policy.
Where do you stand?
She said she
I
would
said
like
I
that.
would, I feel strongly that we should have a policy.
Okay, I think it's public safety. I think science speaks for itself, and I do support a policy.
Okay,
The conversation beyond that is the next conversation, but I support a policy.
all right. I concur with the council as well. I think that it is required. We are in some very dangerous times right now, and we need to have something in place. So where do we go from here?
Next question.
Do we now ask whether we want that policy to be mandatory or voluntary? Is that
It's not
next on the
voluntary.
meeting list?
No, the next question is, do we want to make it that the vaccination is required for employees, or whether we would accept a medical and religious exemption.
We
and-
have no choice but to accept medical
Okay.
and
Yeah,
religious
let's be
exemptions. Yeah.
Okay,
Can I break in for just a second? Because I think we're getting confused because of exemptions and required exemptions.
Yeah.
Can we just call the other kind where you don't have a medical and religious reason is a no excuse exemption? You can just decide to do it and get tested? We'll just
Now,
call
let's-
it. the no
Let me be
excuse.
clear on this, okay? I cannot recommend you having a policy requiring vaccinations without permitting exemptions for medical or religious reasons. And the city manager will get into this when we get to the point of actually discussing the policy. But there is a process which the employee would have to follow to establish this exemption. We do not sit in judgment on whether the employee is telling the truth. If the employee submits the correct form signed by the correct people,
and it's all done in confidence between them and their director or in the city manager.
Would be well, again,
Those are things that
not
we would
important,
decide.
not important. That's the
Okay.
policy. Would go through HR. I'm
Okay.
gonna draw your attention
We're getting in the
to the
weeds.
memo, and it says, if you desire to have a policy, which you do, the primary topic to be discussed would be whether regular COVID testing would be allowed in place of vaccination. That's the question now before you.
Okay, I understand
Would
what you're saying.
testing be allowed in place of?
So if you, what you're
requiring
saying is,
vaccination?
are we gonna allow someone who says, I don't want to take the shot, then say, hey, okay, you have to get tested every, how many? How-
Well,
The rule says at least week.
And we can figure that out, yeah.
Okay.
The temporary order says
So,
at least weekly.
okay, so, I'm gonna take off my mask just for this. I really believe that we have an incredible staff and we have incredible first responders. I also personally do not see this as a political issue. I see it totally as a safety and health issue. And I believe that the employees of our city, I think 89% is excellent, but I don't think it's good enough at this point. I think that, like the mayor just said, we're in a health crisis, and I do not want to seek out one department over another. I think it should be the entire staff and first responders that the policy applies to. I think every employee should be held accountable. And if we have a medical and religious exemption, I believe those people should be tested on a regular basis. If you're not part of a medical or religious exemption, then you should be required to have the vaccine, period. I just think that there's a level of trust in our community, and our community loves our first responders, and they trust them. And when they go to their homes, or they help someone in need, even with the mask, it's not enough, that you're still face to face with people. And I just believe the science speaks for itself, and that we have to require the vaccine.
Missy.
So let me make sure that I'm understanding everything that I'm hearing, and I want to go back to the CMS policy. What I'm hearing from you is unless you have a religious or a medical exemption, you want a policy that mandates you get a vaccination.
Yes,
Okay.
that's my opinion.
Okay, and I just want to make sure I understood that. Now I want to go to the CMS policy because I never thought that the threat of my day job would end up being a threat in my night job, and this is a threat. So the questions that I've come up to that the city manager has indicated we don't really have clarification on that is, it is the EMS, okay? Every fireman or majority, I think every single one of them now, I don't think we have any exceptions at this point. Harold is gone. Each fireman is a paramedic, so that falls under EMS. Now, our paramedics do transport to the hospital. But when I read the CMS policy, the way I interpreted it was, it really is for those EMS that end up going into the nursing homes or the hospitals to transport to the nursing homes or other facilities that would really fall under that CMS rule. But, you know, perhaps maybe Mercy is of a different opinion because there are connection. That's where we take people. That's where our EMS takes folks is to Mercy Hospital. So
They take people also to MOBAP and other places. They don't only go to Mercy.
oh, they don't?
No. They'll take them to Barnes West, they'll take them to MOBAP, they'll take them to Mercy.
Okay, well, I'll finish my thought there because that did kind of
I'm
put a
sorry.
little,
I
that's
didn't mean
okay.
to
I put a little
interrupt.
cog in there,
I
but
didn't mean to interrupt.
no, and you're fine. This is conversation. So under CMS, if you're going into a hospital setting, if you're going into a situation of hospital, nursing home, whatever, they want all of their paramedics, all EMS need to be vaccinated. And that's, you know, a good portion of our, you know, of our public safety. And if we end up falling under that, and that's all I'm saying is if we end up falling under that CMS because of the interpretation of our relationship with the hospitals, then I believe it should be for the entire, as you said, you know, Maxine, it should, that CMS policy should go for the entire city employees.
It would have to.
Okay. And yes, then we only have the exemptions of the medical and the religious. And I too want to say that when Barb in her memo identified that it's 89%, that's good, but I know other cities that are 93% and higher. And I understand, you know, what that percentage is compared to the overall number of employees we have. But we're getting back into the winter. We're getting back into seeing things spike again. And I don't really want to see things go backwards. Yes, we suppose we have a pill. Yes, we have the, you know, the immunizations. And yes, the tendency to bring up this virus again are in nations and in areas where there are low vaccination rates. And we are all improving and we do have a good rate in our city. So I support your thought. I still want to know whether we're going to end up falling under CMS because we have EMS. And that's the unknown.
So I have a question for Paul, but do we want to hear from Greg or the mayor first?
Well, Greg has spoken his piece about it. So have you.
Yeah.
So it's missing. So here's something I want to say. Today, I spoke with a young fireman on the phone, called me on my cell phone. We had a nice long conversation. Very well spoken young man. And we talked for a while. And he brought some information to me that actually I hadn't thought about. He was saying that there is a few he's heard that some people have gotten or carriers of the virus, if you will, and never got sick, but they still had the virus. And that some people think that because they have the virus and never got sick, they may have the antibodies, if you will. There's so much information out there right now that could be true, it might be fake, and you really don't know which way to turn. Well, here's the fact. Science has proven, and it is not political, it's not social, but science has proven that majority of the people who are dying right now are the people who are not getting vaccinated. You can't deny it. It is what it is. I'm no hero. When I get up in the morning, I put my pants on one leg at a time, and that's what I told him. I don't save any lives, but those fellas do. And the people in this community, like you said, Maxine, love them and trust them. I trust them. They've come to my house a couple of times and helped me, and I trust them. I can't imagine how one of them might feel if you were a carrier of that virus. You didn't get vaccinated, but you weren't sick, and you come to help someone who's laid out on the floor sick with something that may not be life-threatening, but somehow you pass that virus on to that person. Then they get sick. Like for myself, I have some medical issues that if I were to get the virus, it would all but take me out because of my existing medical conditions. I know that none of those good men or women would want that on their hearts to know that they possibly infected someone with that virus. I can't imagine that anyone would want to be in a position where you'd be willing to give up your job to avoid taking something that is not going to hurt you, that's only going to help the community in which you serve. I would hope that no one would give up a job to work in such a wonderful community as this for something that I feel is more of a social stand up or stand against, if you will. Because it, for me, and this is just my personal opinion, it defies logic to do something like that. I support my first responders. Again, they are the heroes, not me. I come here to do my job, which is policy. But when it comes to boots on the ground and when it comes to getting your hands dirty and bloody, it's them. But I also believe that our heroes should never bring any kind of threat, an unknown threat to the people that they're trying to help. So yes, I agree with you. I agree with you. And I also agree with Gregory that we should have some sort of policy in place to make sure that our first responders are protected, that the community is protected. Because I don't want to hear that one of my first responders caught COVID and died. It's killing more of our police officers now than bullets. That's a fact. That is not opinion. And I want to make sure that they are protected and that one day all this crap will be over with. But I think this is something that we're going to have to deal with for a long time. So that's all I have to say.
I mean, you know, we are all worn out emotionally and tired of it, and that tends to, you know, play with the unfortunate emotional aspect of ignoring the science, you know, and that is unfortunate. But you know, I think we all agree that we want to implement the policy. We'll see what they bring back. I am for testing for those that have not been vaccinated. I want them to be.
But the ones that would only be allowed, personally, I think that the ones that should only be allowed to not be vaccinated would be the religious and medical exemption, but they would need to be tested on a regular basis.
And that's where I stand too. If the only exception is religious or medical, but those folks need to be tested. Now, the question that I have next on that, and Barb may say, no, you know, that's further down the road, is when I read CMS policy, when I read OSHA, it says you can test at least weekly. Well, to me, the word at least weekly means we could set a policy that they get tested. It doesn't have to be 7 days, doesn't have to be 10 days. It could be every 5 days. It could be every 3 days. You know, we have shifts that are different with our police and our fire. Maybe that is, what are we going to measure in the amount of time frame of those that will take religious and medical exemptions? What is their time frame to test? And I do believe that they should be paying on their own, but I'm not sure what you told me with regard to, you know, what is an MOU? Is there a different rule for the fire department under an MOU? Okay, no, there isn't. So I do believe that the employee themselves should be paying for the testing. And I'm not so sure that I would want that test to be every 7 days. I may want it to be every 5 days. So that's the conversation later.
Look,
Have that later, because
right. I would like to say, first of all, Mr. Mayor, I think you expressed it extremely well. And I do concur in that. I think we should let the staff go back now that they know our desire and come back to us with specifics.
okay. And I'm just going to summarize this just so I don't get it wrong. What I'm hearing is you want a vaccination, a COVID-19 vaccination policy. You want it to be mandatory for all employees, but with a religious and medical exemption. We will work on the details of the testing, et cetera. And the timeframe, I mean, this would be an ordinance for the believe we do our personnel policies by ordinance, so it'd be an ordinance change in our personnel policies, but I'd look at that. It would become incorporated in our personnel policies. And I can have a draft back to the council for your December work session.
And then the only question I have in addition to that is, what is the date that we're gonna set? You must be vaccinated by. We're
I
gonna
think
follow with the
if you
January
first-
4 one or what?
If the city manager brings it back to our workshop, and I think that at that point, we determine that.
I don't disagree. I'm just saying
I
that
think
is
I
another.
think it's too
You
premature.
you work back from that. You work back from that. You figure out how long does it take for someone to be fully vaccinated?
Right.
And then you figure out another couple of weeks or a few weeks, and then you move back from that.
So I do have a question. I do have a question for from Mr. Martin. So if I can't see him. Mr. Mayor, move your head. So when, oh, and that goes on public record. Okay, so if with the federal government, with some of the mandates that they had made for, if I'm saying it correctly, for some of the businesses and corporations and that might, and we were waiting to see if they would say it to us. If someone came up with the policy that was stronger than ours, would they overrule us?
No, the OSHA policy wouldn't apply to us. CMS, I think, is fairly well established. I wouldn't
Okay.
anticipate anything differently
Okay,
happening. Now, of course, if they did come up with a policy that was stronger and you thought it was better, you could always
amend it.
amend the
Okay.
city's policy.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
No, I don't think that's true.
Thank you. Thank you.
Item number 12 is hearing from citizens, part 2. Item number 13, review and approval of minutes.
I saw no corrections.
I'd like to make a minute to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of October 26, 2021.
Second. Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Yes.
Item number 14 is city attorney's report.
Mayor, I don't have a report per se, but I would like a closed session to discuss a couple of items for attorney-client communications under 610-021.1.
So moved.
second.
I'd like to make a motion to.
You're still on.
You gotta take the vote first and then you'll
You
go.
need to take the vote. You're still being
Yeah, let's
recorded.
take the vote
Councilmember
first.
Carl,
Yes.
Councilmember Waldman.
Yes,
Chairman Weil,
Yes.
Mayor,
Yes.
motion passed.
I'd like, you want to entertain a motion? Come out of executive session, please.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, we are adjourned. Peace, love, and understanding.
Hold on a minute.